Hi, it's your girl Lele. Today, our special guest is Milauna Jackson, who was in this amazing film called The Six Triple Eight, written and directed by Tyler Perry. I'm excited for you guys to hear. Hi, Milana. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for being here.
Oh, well, I appreciate you asking me.
So I enjoyed watching you in Tyler Perry's Six Triple Eight film, as you may have known. You starred alongside Kerry Washington in an amazing cast and shared about the world of Black excellence. Well, you shared with the world about Black excellence and that we can do what people think we can and can't do and go beyond that. So I'm curious, what inspired you to pursue acting and how did you get your start in the industry?
Oh, okay. I love this question. Um, well, I always say that The Wiz is what planted the seed. I saw that as a kid, and I loved the way that I felt watching this beautiful piece of artwork. And I got started actually because I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I didn't know anybody in the industry at all. I was at a charm school by the name of Cleo Johnson's Charm School, and there was a competition that she offers her students to be able to utilize the skills that she teaches at the charm school in this competition. And it's modeling, it's commercial print, and then there is a commercial aspect to the competition where you get copy
Mhm.
and you actually do the copy in front of like a panel of judges. And that particular competition was like my introduction to utilizing information that everybody else has access to, but you have to make it your own. There was a girl that was competing in that particular competition, and she went to a performing arts high school. She
Oh.
told me about the performing arts high school. It's in Chicago on the south side. It's called Curie High School, Marie S. Curie High School, after the chemist, Madam C. Curie. Um, and she was in their drama department. And so that was like the way for me to learn about craft. Um, I stayed in Chicago after I did a few years in college. And when I came back to Chicago, I stayed there to pursue my career professionally. And the best way that I could say I did it was through community theater. So it was like Black theaters really gave me my foray into becoming a professional artist. You start behind the scenes. So it's like stage management, and you are an understudy and you
Mhm.
work your way in the business because Chicago is a labor town. That's how I was introduced. I didn't go to a conservatory, so I didn't really know any other way in other than the bottom. So I started in theater, Black ensemble theater, and then you start meeting more people. And as you meet more people, you get more information and more resources. I then began to just my mom had met someone who was in the business. He told her to tell me I needed professional materials, so I got headshots. I started taking acting classes and really worked my way to the top. I would submit all of my headshot materials, resume, everything to all the agencies in Chicago and then the surrounding cities. So even in Wisconsin, I had an agency that was in Wisconsin at the time. This is when I was in Chicago, obviously. So I didn't leave any stone unturned. I made every effort that I could to build the kind of on the job experience that most people get from being in the business for so many years. It's like you have to accumulate a certain amount of credit hours, so to speak, or work hours. And I really started that in Chicago. I brought that to Los Angeles, and that work experience was really just it was like, your humble beginnings. Because in LA, if you haven't worked with anyone that they know personally within the industry, It's just, like the formative years. It's just you building your foundation, you becoming familiar with what being on set is like. And I was doing background work, I was doing plays, I did theater outside of Black theaters. I worked in other theater companies. And so I really just loved the business, and I loved the craft. And so I just continue to put one foot in front of the other, just making as much progress as possible. And the same kind of mindset that I had in Chicago to work my way to the top is what I've been applying in LA.
Nice. Really quickly, what's a charm school?
Yeah, Charm School is a school where they teach etiquette
Oh,
and what they consider to be charm is the way to present yourself in public, the way to sit at a table in front of others. It's like how to behave in front of company, so to speak. And that's a charming aspect to an evening, is a boy or a girl knowing how to conduct themselves in a professional setting. So they called them charm schools when I was growing up, but it's really just teaching etiquette.
okay, nice.
Thank you for asking. I'm glad you asked that. Nobody's ever actually asked that question, but I get why you wouldn't know.
Yeah, I was just really curious. I was like, oh, a charm school. It made me think of like some fairy tale films that I've seen. And I was like, what's a charm school? You've told me that you've worked with Tyler Perry twice. What was
Yes.
that like, and what have you learned from working with him?
Ooh. What was it like? Well, the first time it actually exceeded my expectations. The very first time I when I go to any set, particularly a film set, which is my favorite, I always have to proceed with caution because you just don't know what the temperament of the set is going to be. You don't know how people are going to receive you. And I always have the tendency to approach my very first day. I'm nervous, obviously, but you can never let anybody else know that. So
Yeah.
I just approach it full throttle, like just a kid with full autonomy, not asking for permission, but just going, just playing. And it was received well. And so I didn't know. I thought that I've worked with a lot of people and you just don't know how they respond to your instrument. And he respected it. And so I had a great time, the very first project, which was a jazz man's blues, and then I had an uh, was open and receptive to work with him again because I had such a great time. And so when I came back for the 688, it was even more so interesting experience because we traveled internationally. So, the first time you work on a studio, you kind of get acclimated to the studio. You know what it feels like. You kind of, it's like a process that you began to develop at work. But with the 688, it was a larger production. It was massive because of the content. It was about these women who had experienced this phenomenal assignment for their country, for our country. But at the time, it was a period piece that required uniforms, and I was commanding, so the role was different, and so it was a different kind of challenge. It presented its own unique set of challenges that I recognized I was equipped to handle. So anytime I'm on set and that is my experience, I have to always say it's rewarding and preparing me for the thing that's forthcoming.
Mm, I love
Yeah.
that. So I want to say something. Before I
Okay.
became Miss Black Global, what you saw me at the event as Team Miss Black Global 2025, I was Team Miss Juneteenth America 2024. And had having the blessing of traveling and learning and sharing about Juneteenth and African American history, I want to know what it has been like for you being a part or portraying the 6888, knowing that you're representing and sharing the history of the first and only all Black female unit to be deployed overseas. If you
So
need
you're
me to
asking
explain
me
that to
what it was like to portray a Hall of Famer, to portray a woman who made history in real life. What was that experience like?
to know that you were chosen.
That I was chosen. Wow. Um, I'm still it's been 2 years. We filmed that in 2023. And just now there are have been advancements made that I am a part of. And it's still mind blowing that I was the one that was selected because there were so many other factors that could have interfered with that casting choice. You
Mhm.
know, I originally was approached to do the table reading, and I was in New York working on Law and Order. I was offered a role on Law and Order, and I was not available for the table reading. And I thought after that I would not be involved with the project at all. I had definitely wanted to be a part of this historical project, but I did not think that it would be with the role of Abby Noel Campbell. There wasn't a lot of material that was present at that time on her. So I had to construct an idea of who she was, as well as there's another character, and her name is Mary, and some of the duties that I had in the film were really things that she did. So I'm kind of incorporating two characters, it's like a hybrid character, and I'm incorporating both aspects of these women. And so that's a strong presence that you have to commit to. That there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, because these are women who have family members who want to see their loved one represented with pride and dignity. And I feel honored that it was ordained for me to play this character. It was ordained. And when God opens that kind of door for you, you have no choice but to commit fully. You have no choice but to say thank you and have gratitude, and, you know, represent yourself and these women with the utmost respect.
Yes, I love that. What did the ladies from the 6888 teach you about yourself or about life?
Oh, wow. Well, I'll say about myself is that I actually am a lot more courageous and have a lot more resilience than I realize, that I even probably showcase um, through my work. And so it encouraged me to do more of that. It encouraged me to push myself out of my comfort zone in every capacity, like every time. It doesn't matter if I feel like doing it, I need to do it anyway. But it also taught me about life is that we have to be defiant. We can't restrict ourselves based on other people's preset limitations. And a lot of times there's this ideology that we accept based on what other people feel, how other people see us, based on, other people's um, preconceived notions, based on stereotypes, based on tropes, based on just ignorance or even envy. And so a lot of times I will say when I'm working, I always look at every experience as not just a career boost or opportunity, but a life boost and opportunity. There's a lesson in this experience because I'm going through it. So there has to be a lesson in it. And with this particular project, I feel like that lesson was to remind me that there are going to be rules set that other people are not going to follow. They expect for me to follow because they want to maybe slow me down or deter me or
Mhm.
dissuade me or even maybe set me up to fail. Just like these women, they were set up to fail. They didn't have the resources provided for them. They had to take an empty shell that wasn't fully functioning, it was inhabitable, and make it a home. And this was in the 40s. So obviously today there is no excuse. No matter what the circumstance is, we can figure out a way to create a meal out of a few resources, out of a couple of ingredients. We could feed a whole family. We've always been equipped to do that. And none of it changes just because we have more technology or we have more resources or we have a bigger position in our industry. If we can do it, there's others who can't, that it's up to us to help. And I feel
Yes.
like that's what I learned from this film, that these two women, my character was the lieutenant, and then you had Captain Charity Adams. These two women collectively knew that sisterhood was going to get them through war, and other people were going to want to uh, follow suit and follow their command, and they could complete the mission. And I feel like we could do the same thing like that in real life and in our families, you know?
Mhm. I love the sisterhood, that bond, that how we see each person come from their own stories or how we hear them come from their own stories, and then how we see them just connect. Like when Johnny May, ooh, when she got in trouble that first time, I was like, ooh, but if that didn't happen, then they wouldn't be all as close as they came. And so
Yeah.
between you and Kerry Washington, with her character as Chastity Adams.
Charity.
Charity Adams, my apologies.
That's
But
a
it was just really beautiful.
Yeah, that was an important component to both of us. I know was that you had to be able to recognize that they were friends. The book that Charity wrote talks about her relationship and friendship. It was a genuine sisterhood and friendship that she had with Abby Noah Campbell. And Abby Noah Campbell actually had a brother who had served. So this was a family commitment, to serve your country, to serve the country is a commitment that a lot of families make. I have some male cousins who've served in the military, in different branches. I don't really know of any females who have. So the idea that a woman would decide to do this, I was exposed to after I filmed the movie. After I filmed it, I met a lot of female vets who I know were able to get through the rough times of war because they had bonded with other women and created strong sisterhoods that exist even today.
Oh, that's beautiful. I mean, you gotta get close and like stay with each other, especially for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, as an actress, a lot of work and research goes into portraying historical events or becoming a figure of history. Um, for those that don't know, you portrayed Captain Abby Noel Campbell. And can you share a little bit that with us that you may have learned from her in preparation?
Well, what I may have learned from her
Hmm.
in preparation. Wow. Um,
Like, did she
hmm.
walk a specific way that made you walk or talk a specific way
Oh,
from what
absolutely.
others
Well,
were telling you?
first of all, I'm a switcher, and you're not really switching when you're
In the
commanding
army,
a
you can't be
battalion.
switching.
Yeah, no switching. Debbie Allen made sure that she checked me on that. Like day one, I had a specific choice that I was gonna make, and it's always about giving options and seeing what works. And I think that that's what I learned is that some options won't work, and it's okay. Like it is okay for you to offer something that isn't maybe the exact choice that will help you accomplish your goal or your mission, but the effort itself is going to trigger another idea, another creative outlet. It will plant another seed, and then that can grow into the choice that works, or that can grow into the path that you should follow. And I feel like that's one of the things that I learned is, not to give up, is not to create a defeatist attitude, not to beat yourself up, not to take it personally. Like, it's just not. If it doesn't work, if this is there's a scene with the ladies when the mail has to be returned because the method that they were using was ineffective. If they would have, decided to create a defeatist attitude or become victimized, then it could interfere with your progress. But instead it's like, okay, look, how can we make this work? And it was really about figuring out what the issues were and how to solve them. And I feel like that is one of the things that always works with me. And I would say Abby could have guided me to, and that's to realize that you just can keep going no matter what. You fail, you pick up. You fail, you pick yourself up. You'll, and even though we hear it or see it as failure as being a negative thing, it's really not. It's the effort, it's the attempt. And that's going to generate the inertia to give you the strength to keep going.
My grandma would say, keep on keeping on. And,
Yeah.
and I agree with you because it's not necessarily failure, even if it might feel like it. It's just changing a way of doing something, seeing
Yeah.
different opportunities and like, oh, this didn't work. Well, maybe this will work. And if this didn't work for this, maybe this will work for something else.
Right.
Um, woo, I'm curious a little bit about Law and Order.
Okay. Well,
I want to know a little bit about that. How was that experience?
it was actually one of the, I'm going to be very vulnerable. It was one of the most frightening work experiences because of the legacy that Law and Order carries. It exceeded anything that I've worked on. I worked with Spike Lee. And I knew, obviously, Spike Lee, the filmmaker, and all the movies that inspired me. And I was not even as nervous to work with him as I was to work on Law and Order. There is a component to Law and Order that I did not think I was ready for. And that's really the law part, It's not a lot of narrative. It's not it's not a character driven story that I was a part of. And so I wanted to be sure that I did my best, obviously, but I also wanted to push myself outside. I had already played an attorney on How to Get Away with Murder, and I was an assistant district attorney. Yeah, that's me.
See, I was stalking your IMDb earlier,
Yeah,
but just hearing you say that, oh my gosh. I
yeah.
love Shondaland.
Yeah, I know you do. I know it makes sense. Shondaland is a place to love, so it makes sense.
Yes.
But yeah, I had already done, you know, the I've played the role of an attorney. I do things that challenge me. I like to be challenged in a specific kind of way, not just for the sake of the challenge. No, it's got to be purpose driven. And this character was a public defender, and she was defending a Black man for a crime he did not commit. And that really resonated with me in a time when Black men are being criminalized for just because they're Black men. Their skin has been weaponized, and they are presented as threats. And I didn't want this role to kind of perpetuate that a lot of stigmas that are associated within Law and Order. And so it was challenging. It was challenging. But you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I was offered the role. One of the producers offered the role to me, and so I also wanted to make sure that that relationship was protected. You know, I always want to do a phenomenal job, not a great job, not an excellent job, but a phenomenal job with with every character. But specifically when you're being offered something, you don't have the leverage that people have when they're auditioning. You don't have the time to really work through a scene and create a character. It's like, here's the role, what do you think? And then you're creating it in your mind before you even get to set, because it's an offer.
Would
And
you say
so
it's like
I
doing a cold read?
not even a cold read. It was a direct offer. I was offered a role on Chicago PD,
Mm-hmm.
and the producer of Chicago PD had offered me a role on FBI, and then offered me a role on Law and Order. So
Ooh,
he
girl.
was pretty familiar. Yeah, it's very much an impression. I attribute this to my work ethic, but also I love what I do, and so I like to bring that to set. So I'm just grateful and blessed that people are seeing that. And so Rick Ead, I believe, sees that in me, and he saw that, and it's the Dick Wolf camp. And so they offered me Law and Order. And Chicago PD is set in Chicago. It was one of my favorite characters because that was the first time that I worked in Chicago since I left. Um, but Law and Order is the TV show that's always on the air, the one that we always see. So, in my mind, I'm like, I know this whole world, even though I didn't maybe know this new cast, but I knew the world. And so it's like to be invited in a world you're already familiar with. It's an intimidating component to it. And so I had to lean on my friends. Some of my closest friends are artists, and I would call them. One in particular, his name is Jason Light. We met in acting class, and I respect him as a colleague, but also as a friend. And he would be like, "Okay, friend, we got this." We would go over the lines a number of times, and I never forget. I was like, "Oh my God, I don't know, I can't remember it. I don't know what's happening. What's going on?" And he was like, I know. It's all right. All right. We gonna get through this. And so I just did everything that I could. All of the tools that I've acquired over the years, all of the things that I've learned about my instrument, how to use it, I I I tapped into. And I'm very much proud to say that once I got past that first day, it became easier and easier and easier and easier. And then before I knew it, I was like, okay, I know what this is. This is preparing me for the next opportunity. And so as long as I remember that, it takes ego out of it, and I can just stay on task.
Hmm, that's amazing. Was it full circle? Did it feel full circle working on a TV show in Chicago and like knowing that you started out in theater in Chicago?
Yes, it absolutely did.
I love
um
that.
full circle moments like that, I are God winks. I read this book when I was on a TV show called Animal Kingdom. One of the rooms on set had this book that caught my eye. It was called God Wink. And I grabbed the book and I would read, because we weren't allowed to have our sides on set. That was one of the rules for that particular set. And
Okay.
so I would have to figure out ways to stay present, and you got to keep your energy at a certain level. And so a lot of times we do that with looking at our phones, or looking at the sides. And I definitely did want to look at my phone because I didn't want to be distracted. I just wanted to stay in the zone. And the book God Wink, it was an easy read. I was able to get through that, and that's what it reminded me of, that these are all moments that are going to at some point make sense, even if it's the most challenging experience. Going back to Law and Order, there was a an acting class that I was a part of, and it was a student there. She had mentioned someone she was coaching with, and I wound up just reaching out to her. I wanted someone physically there so that I could be able to work with them on that project. And that was like we had a full circle moment. I feel like she was connected or tied to Law and Order. I think maybe she had done an episode or something. And so it was just like these are moments that are in our line, and there's a benefit to it. So anything that's going to be beneficial to other people, we should always lean into. It's supposed to be our mission is to lean into those things that benefit others, and then we get the reward just from that experience. And so absolutely Chicago was like that for me, to leave Chicago as a an ingenue and then to come back with an offer, and then not like not be a local hire. That's a big thing in your hometown, because you're treated and you feel like a working, Hollywood actress. They have to put you up. They pick
Pay
you
for your
up and drop
travel,
you
pay
off.
for your
Yeah,
accommodations.
exactly.
Yes, your
Exactly.
food.
Per diem. Exactly. And so it felt like I needed to be reminded that I made the right choice by leaving Chicago when I did. Because that's always a question for an actress or actor or any person that's in pursuit of their dream, is when to leave home. First of all, should I leave home? And if I should, when should I leave home? And is there some point where I need to be the prodigal daughter or son to return home? Like all of those things are vital to our journey. Is just being in tune to our path in that specific way that's just destined for you. And so going home without actually returning, but going home to work, oh, I love that.
Oh, I love that. And I love hearing you talk. You're such an inspiration. Thank you so much for sharing about your journey and about all the different things that you've done, the God winks. Thank you so much.
Thank you for actually coming up to me. You talk about a full circle moment. We can't exclude our full circle moment. How you actually saw the panel, the SAG panel on the 6 AAA, and then I'm being honored at the Villager Awards, and you are part of that. I don't think I did. You imagine that we were running to each other again?
I
Exactly.
didn't. I was
So
like, oh, wow. I was just watching and I was like, oh, wow. I love this so much. I love the film. The cast was there. It was amazing. The crew. And just hearing you all speak. And so it's amazing getting to see the people that inspire you right after a film and to hear little bits and pieces of how they did what they created and how that art is now being reflected from them and from you. It's like, you guys see us and we see you, and oh my gosh, and then seeing you again, it was just completely crazy.
yeah,
And you
yeah.
gifted me a picture. I still have it.
Okay, good, good. And I hope that it continues beyond this conversation.
Yes, me too. Um, before I end this video, thank you so much for those watching, for being here, and we hope you come back for the next Lele Times video.
Me
Bye.
too. Bye.